Hey guys, so today I thought I'd do a video basically summing up what it took to get this car here, Lola, registered. Now, I went through a fair bit of stuff, as I mentioned in the last video, what was kind of done, but I've got the list here that I got from the first pit inspection. Thought I'd talk through that and basically just say what I found difficult and what was easy, what was hard, and basically where it is now. So basically when I got this car, it came with a motor gearbox and I had to install that. The seats and dash were kind of just fitted in, not completely, just the dash skin. So I had to basically finish all that off. The wiring loom behind the dash was put in, which was handy because that was just a little fiddly job that I didn't really want to have to do. But I got close to where I thought, well, basically got the car driving so I could drive around the block and get close to what I thought was going to be ready for the pits. I knew that I was going to fail the first time, but I'd rather have a list and go work off a list and then I'd actually be able to check stuff off and go that way rather than go up there with the high hopes that it will pass first shot and fail and then be bummed about it. So I'll read through the list. Electrically, the battery wasn't secured properly, so that took taking a few bits of rubber, putting it underneath the battery, just raising it up and then making the clamps a bit more secure. A few brake lines needed replacing, some were perished, had a few cracks. One was leaking at the back where the hard lines run over the top of the diff and meet into like a little block where all three go in. One of the actual brake lines was so rusty that it was leaking out the brake line. So that required a new brake line, basically just bought a hard line from Perth Brake Parts, bent that up to shape and installed that, so that wasn't too bad. So when I bought this car, the front end was completely off it. It had a rad support, but no bumper, no lights. It came with the quad headlight surrounds, which is a really hard part to find for these cars. Really glad that it did because it wasn't in too bad a condition. I basically had to take it, get it sandblasted, gave it a spray so that it would last. The grille, bumper, bottom brass support all came. That was red. I had to paint that to match the colour. It's a little bit off, but it's a Toyota beige colour match colour, so it's pretty close. There's a few little imperfections, just little spots that need to be touched up now, but it's nothing too serious. So they failed at 4 headlights not being correctly adjusted. That just took a few tweaks of screws, so that was quite easy. Basically, the driver's seat had no springs in it, so borrowed a seat off a mate, and now I put the stock seat back in it. That was just to pass the pit, so that's fine. Tie rod ends, I have a crown nut on top of the tie rod ends, and basically it's got sections cut out so the split pin can run through and wrap around, so that can't come undone. I was missing 2 split pins, so that was an easy fix. I kind of knew that was going to happen, but again, I knew I was going to fail, so I went there with that knowing. The wheels weren't matching material, which obviously I borrowed some for the pits, and now it's fine, so that's no problem. I need to get a modification permit because this is running BC racing coilovers all round. Now, I was super lucky because when he read through this first list with me, he came up and he basically said that your car has no suspension travel. Yeah, so basically the guy told me that your car doesn't have enough suspension travel. That right there is on the softest setting for these coilovers. Very stiff, very not street friendly, but makes it feel a little bit more like a race car. And he was going to fail me for that, and that really was probably the worst thing that I could have failed for, because that would have meant new springs in the coilovers, or basically coilovers out and get it registered without coilovers, which means no permits, which means future sticker possibilities, so many things. The rear has more to it, but still, again, definitely very stiff. So after that, he basically went through the rest of the list with me, and he said, look mate, I'm going to scratch this one out and fix everything else on the list, come back and we won't worry about your spring rates. And that just made my day 10 times better, because that was going to be the hardest thing to fix or get sorted, and I'm really glad that I didn't have to do that. So exhaust didn't have all the hangers on. These have like a dual exhaust hanger that needs both rubbers connected. I had one on each one. Luckily I had the spare rubber, so that was a very easy fix. As you can see here, you can see just in there where my finger is, the washers on these actually come down and they hook in from the engine bay. Now, they were literally moved over probably 5 mil and they were hitting the grille, so that just took a bit of repositioning and then they worked fine, so. that was a win. The front tint on the two front windows was too dark, So basically just had to rip that off, clean it up, and now the windows have been retinted, so that was okay. The speedometer cable fluctuates, and I'm pretty lucky it still does. I managed to, basically from your gearbox, you have a speedo cable that runs up with a keyway on the gearbox, runs up through the firewall and connects into the back of your dash. It's a little square metal cable and it fits into a female version of that behind the dash. Now that was worn out on mine, so I just basically got some blue tack, like putty, and put over that steel cable and kind of sandwiched it in there, and it made it a bit more solid. It fixed it for the pits. I think it's worn itself out now, and now my speedo does fluctuate, so when you're doing about 40 Ks, it'll bounce around between 30 and 50, which is kind of dangerous because you don't really know what your speed, you get a rough idea what speed you're doing, but it's not quite accurate. So that needs to be addressed in the near future. A big one was the idle with this car. Now, I got 2 carbies with the car and bought a third, went through trying to fix the first one, trying to fix the second one, ended up putting the third one on, which got it probably running the best, and ended up playing around with the choke and idle screw-in mixtures and so on, air-fuel ratioed, and got it idling good enough for them to basically pass it. Left-hand rear door didn't open from the inside. Now obviously that's not something you're going to realise unless you hop in that car and shut the door. I've only driven the car, or hopped in from the basically driver's side and shut the door. So that was an easy fix. It was actually the child lock was stuck on. So this is your child lock here, this little switch. Basically that was just a bit jammed. He could have fixed it if he knew what he was doing, but unfortunately he didn't. So that was a super simple fix for me. The last thing was basically the suspension was creaking in the rear. When I took the car for a wheel alignment, after I put everything in, I got the wheel alignment as close as I could and took it for a wheel alignment, and I got the coilovers set to the right height. I got them set to 110mm. The legal height here in Australia is 100mm. I got it set to 110 just to be safe because I knew I was changing wheels around for the pits and I didn't want that 10mm to catch me out. So basically went through and got it set to 110mm. They found that the rear right coilover spring was actually in upside down, which I hadn't noticed yet because I hadn't really looked at the suspension. I thought it was all done properly before me. So got that done, and it was creaking a little bit, so I just got some silicone spray on the springs and it fixed it right up. Okay, so in here a few of the issues. As I mentioned, the speedo cable was one of them. This was the piece that needed mounting down properly, which that's no worries now. Okay, so this panel here was definitely one of the biggest issues we had with the car. This stopped our demisters from working and our wipers from working. Now, it's basically a little control panel circuit board. This is your wiper control module. Then you've got plugs here that run for your demisters and your wipers, as well as the interior light and a few others. Now, this plug at the top here in the middle had melted and burnt through the main power wire supplying power to this panel. We replaced everything else, but this panel itself was screwed, so I had to buy another one of these panels. Luckily a mate of mine had one, so I could borrow his until mine arrived from Queensland. Now that got fixed. I changed the panel out and put everything back together. Still didn't work, so that is when the car went off to the auto sparkies. They realised they had to rewire the board a little bit, put supply power to it basically in another way, and that fixed the whole issue, gave power to everything, and demister started working, wipers worked as they should, and that fixed the rest of those issues. Now I thought I should probably share why I keep calling this car Lola the Roller. It's probably a good idea that I get it out early so people can stop wondering where the name comes from. Now when I bought the car, the whole back seat and the boot was full of storage tubs, parts, and basically to get the car running. Now I didn't take everything out straight away, I just kind of left it in there because it was easy to store it in there. You can see that there, it says Lola. Now someone has put some effort in, and that's like raised off the board and then been carpeted. It's all really neatly done. So someone's named this car Lola at some point, and I kind of can't argue with that because they've done a really neat job of that board, and I don't want to change it, and it works. Lola the Roller, it rhymes. Why wouldn't you call it Lola? So yeah, that's basically today's video, guys. Just wanted to share what it took to get this car registered. There was a lot of other things, obviously playing around with the gearbox and stuff, but I think I'll leave that for another video. That's kind of the mechanical side of things that took a bit of tweaking and stuff. There was issues with the tail shaft, gearbox and stuff like that. but I'll talk about that in another video. But I thought I'd just go what actually was required to get this registered, to legally get this on the road in Australia, and just to give some people an idea of how hard it can be versus how easy it might be for you in your country or something like that. But right now the car's driving good, it's enjoyable. It does need a 5-speed box because the revs on the highway and so on. But we've got a few more videos to come about the Corolla, plenty more to come actually, and hope to see you in the next video.